For Kruger Media in Johannesburg, I'm Sanel Dlamini. Loredana Kaminski joins me to discuss her book titled Curse of Gold. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Can you briefly tell us what your novel is about and what inspired you to write it?
Okay, the novel is about, I'm not too sure if you know about the Kruger Millions. It's an urban legend.
Yes.
And it was always kind of playing on my mind, what would happen if they were discovered? You know, somebody found them. And from there, I started to develop these characters. And I saw a photograph that my husband had taken many years ago of a little black boy and a little white boy. And these became my main characters. And the one became Matimba and the one became Anton. And from there, these characters developed. And I start from 1900.
Yes.
When Paul, when he supposedly buried the Kruger Millions. And it just kind of went up to 1981.
Yeah, and the book is, like you've just said, is in the 1900s, in the Eastern Transvaal.
Yes.
Can you briefly tell us that about the confrontation that you start with in the book and what it was all about?
Well, it starts off with that these two commanders of Paul were given this task to bury these Kruger Millions. So they go off, and that's how it starts. They bury, but unfortunately one of them becomes a little greedy because he sees all this gold. So they end up being killed. Due to the war, the British troops were coming over the mountain, so they get killed. And then it goes on to the Shangaan chief, who finds some of the gold.
What are you hoping people will get after reading your novel?
You know, from the reviews I've got, my characters have developed that they actually touch your soul. They are the hardships of, although he was brought up as he's white, but he's had his hardships. It lands up his father dies, and his mother marries this woman, this man he's a drunkard and he's abusive. So he also comes out of not such a great background. And Matimba, on the other hand, because of apartheid, he goes through his difficult times. And when they are young, on the mine, as little boys, Matimba gets given this little tin can from his dying grandmother, and inside is the map of from the commanders.
Yes.
So they then, as little boys, they tear the map in half. And they say, when we are older, we'll get together and we'll join the map, we'll go on our treasure hunt. It was all very joyful because they were young. And then, as I say, the tragedy happened that they lose their fathers on the mine and they part company. And then 21 years later, Matimba is caught with half a map on him. And of course, in those days, it was very strict. It was, if black men were seen with a bit of a map, it was terrorism. And then he gets thrown into jail, and he goes through all this just because of an innocent little map. And Anton is now a lawyer, and he helps Matimba.
It must have been difficult a bit for you to write this kind of story because you had to look back into the 1900s. Can you tell us about the challenges that you encountered?
Well, you know, it wasn't really a challenge as such because it's part of history. So you just have to go back and just research and see. You know, it was Paul and it was Paul Kruger, and he was, in his time, he was very much a powerful man, and you kind of just sap off that, you know, and he plays a very short part of the book. It's just the intro kind of thing. So it doesn't carry on through the whole of the book. So the 1900s, very short, and I didn't have to do much research.
If you can just remind our viewers, who was Paul Kruger?
He was the president of South Africa in 1900. You know, he's became president, and he was actually forced to leave the country because the war was he was losing the war against the British. So, and he was involved with the Boer War.
And do you think this storyline has some meaning if we look at South Africa now?
Yeah, I think so. I think it plays a part because things transpired there where seem to be coming up now, you know. it's the land. It's so much that we've kind of forgotten, but now it's coming again. And I mean, when I wrote this wasn't happening, funny enough, but now the land's becoming issue. And land at that time, you know, I think it was an issue anyway, because you had the tribes in their villages, and they were carrying on with their lives, and then suddenly growth and, you know, development started happening. And it's, you know.
Yeah, off camera you've just told me that you've received one of comforting feedback, if I may say, from one of the viewers, of the readers of this book. Can you briefly share what kind of a feedback?
Well, it was very positive. She said that she enjoyed the book immensely. And my characters are very lifelike. And she kind of, in her mind, had so many ideas of how the book would end, and it ended so differently, which kind of wowed her. And like she said it. She put me in. She said I'm in the line of Dan Brown. That's how she felt the book was so captivating, you know, and really enjoyed it. And sorry that it's finished. And hope there is more to come.
Is there more to come?
Yes, there will be a sequel. There has to be a sequel.
Okay. Okay. And is there anything that you would like to share with our viewers? But you don't have to give out the end of the story. But what are they going to discover while reading the book?
The way I've written it, I think people will really enjoy it, just from my characters. You know, in my mind, they are alive, and I'm hoping that when the reader really picks up the book, that they'll feel the same experience, that these characters will come alive for them.
Okay. And lastly, where can we get this book?
We are going to have a book launch in Scoops. They're looking at about November. I haven't got a date yet, but I'm in communication with Deborah, the manager there, and she's very keen to do a book launch. And that's what we would like to start. But if they want and they're very keen to see what all the hype is about, they can email me and I can get them a copy.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
You.
That was Loredana Kaminski speaking to Polity about her book titled Curse of Gold.